Welcome to SharePoint Mastery Showcase, Episode 8, SharePoint 2007 Beginner Project 1, Part 2, with your host, Keith Hudson. At SharePoint Mastery, we help you master SharePoint one step at a time so you can control your own destiny.
Music by Kevin MacLeod.
This is Part 2 of SharePoint 2007 Beginner Project 1, How to Design and Build a Simple Help Desk Ticketing System in under 4 hours, even if you've never used SharePoint before. In Part 1, we described the business process we're trying to automate and began teaching a simple method of analyzing the business process in order to design a SharePoint solution. We recorded in the project workbook the basic operation of the system and who the stakeholders are. The next step in our method is to list the objects needed in the system and their properties. In identifying the objects needed in the system, I find it helpful to first list the system behavior in a step-by-step manner. I've taken the basic operation and in my project workbook, I've created a new tab called System Behavior. The IT guys would probably call these the system requirements. I've broken down in step form what the system behavior will be. Firstly, a user fills out a web-based form describing the problem. Then the system assigns a ticket number to the problem. Next, an email is sent to the user with the ticket number. Fourth, the ticket is routed to the desktop technician responsible for the building in which the user works. Fifth, the technician corrects the problem. Lastly, the technician closes the ticket. We might want to have the user confirm that the problem has been resolved to his or her satisfaction, but in order to keep our first working prototype simple, we'll put that requirement on our parking lot list. So here's our parking lot tab with user confirms that the problem has been resolved. We may add more to that as time goes on. Now I'll go over the system behavior and identify nouns, which will be objects in the system. Verbs are actions the system needs to carry out, and we'll address those later. Here's a hint. It will be helpful to be able to see the steps in the system behavior while writing out the objects and actions. In order to make that easier, I've copied those steps into a notepad and we'll make those visible while I'm writing these down. In real life, I'd probably put them side by side, but it's easier under the video to put it underneath. So now I start to list the nouns. User, that's a noun, fills out a web-based form describing a problem. A ticket number is assigned to the problem. The ticket number is sent to the user. The ticket is routed to a desktop technician. So you'll see I'm identifying these nouns, recording them as I go. The technician corrects the problem and the system closes the ticket. Now, a couple of things. System just describes our whole solution, so I really don't need that. And when we talk about closing the ticket, we're really talking about closing the problem ticket. Now let's figure out how these objects relate to each other. Well, the web-based form is really part of SharePoint automatically, and so that one we can basically get rid of. The whole system centers around problem tickets, so that's probably the most important object here. In fact, if we think about it, the ticket number is really part of the problem ticket. It's something that identifies the problem ticket. There's some other things that probably relate to the problem ticket as well. The user is really the person filling out the problem ticket, describing the problem. So I'm going to put him down here. Now, in thinking about this system, there's a number of things we're going to need to know about the user and that relate to the problem. Well, first of all, of course, we have a problem description. We need the user to describe for us what his problem is. Then we need to know the user's email, phone number. We need to know what cube he's in and what building he's in. Hang on, I've got to move this guy down here a little bit. The other thing I know about our system from the description of the problem that we gave earlier is that we have 3 buildings, and each building has a desktop technician assigned to it. So we need to have the building assignment for each desktop technician. Now the desktop technician is also going to have to be described on our problem ticket so that we know what the connection is. So problem ticket's going to be our main list, but we're going to need another list that shows our desktop technicians. So those are our main objects as we've analyzed the nouns. There are a few more things we're going to need, though, to make this system work as we think through the steps. In addition to the problem description, we're going to need a resolution, and we need to record what the resolution of the problem is. So we need a resolution description. We also want to start keeping some statistics on tickets, so we're going to need a start date for the ticket and a resolution date. Lastly, in order to know the status of a ticket, we're going to need a status field. And as I think about the statuses that are needed, the ticket is open as soon as the user creates it, but the technician hasn't seen it yet. Once he sees it and accepts it, it's now in process. Then once the repair is finished, it's repaired. But we may want to do some other things before we actually close it, so we'll also have a status of resolved once it's actually closed. Now I've spent a little more time thinking about this and grouped these things together. You'll see that I've indented the information about the user since it relates to the user. When we want to make this system more complex, we might actually want to create a user list as a separate list. But to keep this working prototype simple, we're not going to do that. You'll see that I've added name and email address to the desktop technician list. The desktop technician object, which of course will become a list. The last step in our method of analyzing the business process is to determine what actions the system and the actors in the system need to take. We'll start that analysis in the next part of this series. Thank you for joining us for this episode of SharePoint Mastery Showcase, presented by SharePoint Mastery, where we help you master SharePoint one step at a time so you can control your own destiny. Come visit us at www.spmastery.com.